What is going on, everybody? John B. Saunders here, the founder and lead web designer at 54 Digital. And in today's presentation, I am breaking down scaling your web design agency with SOPs. In other words, standard operating procedures. I'm going to show you how to set up systems, create a knowledge base, and develop your agency so you can grow and scale your efforts. I know it doesn't sound super exciting, but trust me, this is something that every agency, freelancer, or individual working in the branding design space need. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in, y'all. So first things first, of course, I got to tell you a little bit about me. Just want to give you a brief overview before we jump into this presentation and get you going with your knowledge base and standard operating procedures. So just a precursor. Understand that you're going to be leaving here with operating procedure examples, ways that you can systematize your business, and more. And so just a little bit about me. I'll keep it brief. Here's my life in pictures. I'm a family guy, husband, gamer, super nerd. As you can see in the pictures here, I've got an old Nintendo set. I think I got that when I was about 5 years old. You know, you have to have the duck hunt and all that good stuff there. So I'm still a gamer to this day. Love it. It's an amazing outlet. And I love web design and branding because it allows me to use that creative side of my brain, as well as the analytical side, which I'm going to be breaking down today. In the pictures, you'll see my wife, Dee, and my son, Logan, and I'm a huge advocate for providing value. In the bottom left, you can see a picture of me presenting to a few folks here in sunny South Florida. Just a few things regarding who I am and what I've done. I'm an avid creator and web designer, huge advocate for Webflow and no-code tools as well. I'm the founder of 54 Digital. We're a web design and branding agency in sunny South Florida with a worldwide remote team. We get to work on really dope projects for startups. I'm also the founder of Black Illustrations, which is a platform where you can download illustrations featuring people of color doing all sorts of really cool things for your digital projects. I also founded urbanwallet.co, which was recently acquired and is a blog for financial literacy. Lastly, if you want to talk sci-fi, Marvel, Legos, and hip hop, I'm your man. Hit me up after this presentation and I'll be happy to chat it up with you. So here's an example of 54 Digital, our branding and web design agency. That's the bread and butter. That's where all of our source of creativity comes from. Of course, Black Illustrations, the illustration platform with integrated CMS, course built with Webflow. And then lastly, let's go ahead and go into the overview. So you might be thinking, well, what are SOPs? You might have heard the phrase before. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you haven't seen the acronym prior. But I want to break down what exactly standard operating procedures are and how they can help you in developing and scaling your business. So first thing I want to do is talk about what it is. SOPs are literally step-by-step directions compiled for your company to help your team members carry out complex routine operations. Now, you might be thinking, well, you can't automate creativity, or I can't take what I do and teach someone else to do it. You're wrong, dead wrong. Like, you can literally take a system, create a process, and teach what you know to others. So essentially, you're taking your IP, right, your intellectual property, you're hiring team members or delegating to team members to help them build their skills, and thus almost creating a clone of yourself, right? Because they're learning your specific way of doing things. And a lot of times that's a huge, unique selling proposition. Also with SOPs, you can achieve efficiency, mainly being if you have step-by-step directions for something, it's going to be a lot easier for you to mitigate mistakes because you literally have step-by-step directions on how to complete something in your business. You also create quality output and uniformity. We've created operating procedures with almost everything in our agency, from quality assurance to creating web design artboards to brand guidelines. I'm going to show you probably 4 or 5 operating procedures that we use right now to scale our efforts with a completely remote team. Also, SOPs can reduce miscommunications. If you're having an issue with a job or something is going wrong within your business, you can always go back and refer to those SOPs. Now, again, SOPs might change over time, but ultimately you have a repository of exactly how to run your business. So first thing I want to do is show y'all one of the GOATs, one of the greatest of all time when it comes to SOPs. This is my man, Ray Kroc. Now, there's a movie called The Founder you all should check out. It's kind of crazy, kind of ruthless, but it's a really good film on how McDonald's started and how they leverage SOPs or standard operating procedures to build their business. With that said, Ray Kroc is, like I said, the GOAT of SOPs and the founder of McDonald's. Well, a little bit more on that later. So ultimately, what differentiated him was the McDonald's strategy. Ray led to a fully made burger in 60 seconds. And every time that burger was made, it was exactly the same every single time. So he was able to create continuity in what he was developing his burgers with. Now, if you've had a Big Mac, double quarter pounder with cheese, I mean, you definitely know that when you go to McDonald's, you're getting that consistency every single time. Now, let's go ahead and break down his strategy. So first thing he did was he had a standardized operations that included portion sizes, food preparation, packaging, and ingredients in a 75-page manual. Now, listen, you might not need a 75-page manual to execute your SOPs, but just to show his level of dedication showed how he was able to systematize. So he started out creating his operating procedures. Now, he had that operating handbook, and that process made it efficient and easy for others to learn. As teen employees kind of came and went, right? A lot of times when you're working in fast food, a lot of your employees are younger. It was important that he had these operations so customers could receive a certain level of continuity and quality every time they came into one of his restaurants. His strategy was a huge and vital role in helping McDonald's grow to 25,000 worldwide stores and become the best fast food chain of all time. When you think about your favorite spots like McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, they all have operating procedures. Essentially everything that you do does. You just might not have documented it and shared it. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about in this presentation in full detail. So let's talk about why you should create SOPs and how they can help you scale your business. So one, they help create consistency. If you're a web designer and you're trapped in the sales process, or maybe you're a web designer and you have some really great projects that you're working on, but you don't have time to do a competitive analysis or create an artboard. Or maybe you're growing your agency and need to organize your IP or your intellectual property so that you can scale. A lot of freelancers out there suffer from the same thing. You become a freelancer, you're working, and either you have an influx of work, right? And multiple clients that want to collaborate, or you have so much work and you have so much going on that you don't have time to do the fun, exciting stuff that you love. SOPs can help you get your time back. And when I say that, I speak from experience. I've been there hundreds of times where you're sitting there, you've got a huge pile of work. You can't take the time to execute and really use your creative freedom to develop projects that you're proud of. And so you're rushing to get work done. You might miss things. You're having issues. A lot of these things can roll into one when you're lacking those SOPs. So real quick, I got to tell you a story of how I got started in it. So rewind, the agency's been around for about 7 years. Rewind back to the first couple years. I was working by myself as a freelancer, doing mostly design and development and branding for startups. So what happened was I was doing the work myself, everything. And every time I got a new project, it was, okay, I'm going to hit the ground running. Now, I couldn't take on as many projects as I wanted because I didn't have systems. I was just kind of working and getting stuff done as it went. And it really became a problem for me because I wanted to have high quality output and great work, but it was starting to decline because of my workload. So the first thing that I did was I literally said, okay, what first position can I hire in? And secondly, how can I literally write down step-by-step what I do in the agency? So I did it. I literally took a piece of paper, got a pen, and got to writing. I wrote down every step of the process. When it's web design, I wrote down, okay, first thing we do is a brand discovery session for an hour. After that discovery, we'll create the sitemap. This is the exact process for the sitemap. Open up the document. Step 2, write home. Step 3, right? So it's literally making it so foolproof that you could give it to your aunt, your mom, your friend, someone that works completely outside of the industry, and they can execute at a high level. So you might be thinking, well, what can I actually make into an SOP? Essentially anything. Podcast outreach, client onboarding, cash flow management, customer engagement, on-site SEO, product launches, competitive analysis, All of these things can be systematized. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying automated because some of this stuff does need some manual review. But ultimately, by creating these systems, you're developing your intellectual property for your agency. You're creating a knowledge base for new hires, and you're essentially making it so that you can scale. And again, you don't have to be scaling to 30 million a year, right? You might want to scale to 100,000 or 500,000 or 750,000. You can't do it without SOPs. Just 4 more options on developing this process. It creates a responsibility in your biz so you can onboard, train, and scale faster. Now, some of you might be a freelancer and might say, hey, it's just me. I don't need SOPs because I'm not building a team. Well, not yet. And also, you don't necessarily have to have a huge team either. You can create these systems for yourself and you can do a few things. Let me break this down. And this is something I've done myself. So as a freelancer, you might say, well, I don't want to hire, so I don't need to develop SOPs. I like working on my own. I like having my own clientele, and there's nothing wrong with that. The one thing that you want to do is build up your SOPs because then you can essentially package that as a product. So let's say I have an SOP for how to build high fidelity wireframes as a freelancer. I can take my SOPs, I can package it, and I can charge someone for that course, right? Or that training. It just makes it so that you have these products that you can develop, but then you can also train team members. The possibilities are endless. So just to break down why you should create SOPs, it creates a dedicated knowledge portal. You're able to mitigate mistakes because you have step-by-step directions. You can improve your accuracy, and it makes onboarding so much easier. So now let's go into how to create an SOP. I'm going to show you, break it down. It's very easy to do. It is time consuming at first, but once you get the hang of it and you start creating SOPs and you see your stuff getting done, you're going to be like, yo, why didn't I do this sooner? So if that's you, make sure you tweet me when you see this. All right. So step 1 is you're going to identify. First thing you want to do, get your paper, get your iPad, get your Procreate up, get your Apple Pencil, whatever you need. Identify what you would like your SOP to accomplish. When you can understand this, it's easier to write an outline and define the details. And we'll go into specifics when I show you the example SOPs in a few minutes. So 1, identify, right? Think about what you need to create an SOP for. 2, perform. Now you're going to perform that task. Take your time, be efficient, and don't worry if it's not perfect. SOPs are going to change probably for the rest of your life. So as you build these out, they're always going to be updated based on technology, changes in the industry, and more. Document. Now, while you're performing the task, document every aspect of that process. Write down a detailed list of items that need to be executed with the end goal in mind. So if it's, for example, on-site SEO for a website, step 1, do a competitive research on keywords. Step 2, add titles to each website page in Webflow by XYZ. Step 3, add a meta description. So literally breaking it down step by step. Document as you do it, because as you're documenting and performing this, you'll get better. You'll have your SOP documented, and then you can delegate that. So identify, perform, document. Next, you want to record. Use software like Loom, Camtasia, Zoom Record. This is going to be for you or your team, so that way they can execute without you. Now, I like Loom the best because 1, it's free up to, I think, $720, and then you can pay for HD, which is really affordable. I think it's like $10 a month. And you can do screen caps. You can download them. You can record up to 4K. Really quality tool, and it works through your browser, so it's really easy to access. So now that you've identified and now you moved into recording and documenting that, now you're going to record yourself performing the act. Next, you're going to review. Now take the SOP, look at the steps, make sure that your team members understand it, take notes, accept feedback, and then keep going. Then update. You're constantly going to be updating that SOP. It's not one set and done. It's great because you're delegating and other folks are taking that and being able to run with it. But you always want to make sure that you're keeping relevant. One example with us is for a long time, we were using Adobe XD. Then we switched to Sketch for our wireframing and prototyping. And now we primarily use Figma. Since we've done that, we've had to go back and update our SOPs to make sure they're reflective of the newest platform that we're using. So always keep that in your mind. So just to recap that, because this is a very important point that I want to get across. 1, identify. identify what you want your SOP to accomplish. 2, perform the task. Actually do it. Once you've identified and you performed it, make sure you're documenting every step of the way as you complete those tasks. Also, while you're doing that, make sure you record. You can use Loom, Camtasia, or Zoom to accomplish that. And then you're going to review that SOP with yourself and the team to make sure that it's of quality and ready to roll. And then as that SOP is being worked on and used, you can update that SOP as needed. So that's the SOP strategy as a whole. Now, I do want to show you some examples of what that looks like. So in this document here, and you can use some tools, which I'll talk about later, this is a list of all of our SOPs or standard operating procedures. And then if you look on the right-hand box, that's an actual individual SOP that we've built out. And we're going to show you some examples so you know exactly what that looks like. And then you can start to really think about the things that you need to document at your agency to get the job done. So let's look at a few SOP examples for web design. And I'm going to spend some time here because I really want you to understand and know that you can create these systems so explicitly throughout your business. So first one we will look at is adding alt text to a website. This is a training that we created for adding alt text to websites for accessibility. Now, it's a detailed process because some websites might have 50, 100, 200 images. We want to make sure that we're providing all the information that people need to make an informed decision, especially if they're coming to the website from an accessibility perspective, meaning they're looking at the HTML, they might not see the images. So we want to make sure that we're titling images appropriately and with enough detail. So here's an example of an SOP. First things first, you want to have the last date it was updated. Now, main reason being is it'll tell the team member that's using it, okay, it's been like 5 months since it's been updated. Let's go ahead and dive in and do an update to this SOP. Then what you also want to have is a link to a video training. And I'm going to get more into detail on that because that's important. Now, when you're creating your SOPs, remember I said to record it with Loom or Zoom or Camtasia, whatever platform you're using. The main reason you're doing that is because you want to have yourself walking through the process, right? So you're recording yourself going through these steps. You have the directions on like the right-hand side, which I'm going to share an example with you in a few so you can see what that looks like. And you can take that video. What I do to make it as easy as possible, take that video, upload it to YouTube as unlisted, and then post that link here in your doc. And this doc can be through Notion or Google Docs, whatever you prefer. So to reiterate, we've got last updated date. We have a link to the video training, which is hosted on YouTube through an unlisted link. And then in the video, we have those directions, right? So we have our list up there. And then we include directions and the brief. So if you look at this sheet here, this is the adding alt text to a website SOP that we created. At the top, we have the date it was last updated, and then we have a link to the training. Now, right below that, we have a brief. The brief just gives you details right before you break into the steps. So we talk a little bit about what alt tags are, what alt descriptions are, how they help you develop your idea, and how they title images properly on your website for compliance. Now, under that, we'll have best practices. And under best practices, we have describe the image and be specific. Use both the image's subject and context to guide you. And then right below that, we actually have a link to an article that we found on HubSpot that details the ideal alt text for an image. So now the person going in and looking at this operating procedure can understand, okay, I know the last date was updated. There's a link to the video for me to watch in full that I can learn from. They're providing me with details on what alt text is and the best practices. And there's a link to how this is performed and how I can get great at this. Amazing. Now, right below that, they've got the directions on actually how to initiate and go through that process. And when you're documenting your steps, make sure you're as detailed as possible. You want to make it so that anyone can take this and execute at a high level. So we log into Webflow, click the dashboard, choose your first project and open Designer. So I'm walking them through that exact process. And since we've initiated this about a year ago, our alt text process is a lot easier. We have a couple of team members that can execute this and get it done. And our quality assurance process has been shortened drastically just by implementing this into our process. So let me show you a few more because we've got some SOPs we want to dive into. One thing we do when we have a client and they're about to go live, we send them a document during their launch to provide them with training on how to use Webflow. Now, a lot of times we'll do this in person, but we do want to have this documentation so they can always go back and refer to this. So, of course, as you know, we have the fundamentals, last updated date, a link to the video training, and then directions in the brief. Now, in this one, what I did was I added the training video, and then I have the steps broken down incrementally. So one is how to add a user to Webflow. 2 is how to access Webflow and make changes. 3 is making website edits. So when we send this to the client, 1, it's an amazing way to add value to what you do and what you provide. Webflow already makes it easy for us to integrate a collection management system and content management system and really help and develop collections so that users can easily access the CMS. So now that I have these steps, I can send this to the client and now they can access this training at any time. It's a great way to add value to what you do, and it positions you as a unique selling proposition in the space because a lot of agencies aren't sending their clients trainings like this. So again, think of SOPs of what you can use internally, but also think about ways that this can help you increase your clientele and add value to your process. The next SOP I want to show you is training for quality assurance. So we have this broken down into 3 parts, and I have one section here for you to view. We've broken it down into 3 parts because our quality assurance process is pretty detailed. So we want to make sure that we're giving clients everything that they need and team members everything they need to make informed decisions on how to go live. Quality assurance is just the process and steps that we follow before we go live to the website. So as you can see in the training here, we have the video training, and then we have links that are prevalent, right? Links to the Webflow dashboard, links to any tools that we might need or use. We also have the name, the check icons, and Webflow branding. So we added these bolded options just to make it easier for our team members to go in and perform these audits. This has made the process so much easier because now we can delegate this to the team to get the job done. I'm telling y'all, once you create your first SOP, it's going to be an addiction because now that you can do it, you can systematize these parts of the business and you can even improve it over time. Next one I want to show you is a website quick audit. This is how we perform a quick audit right before launch. We've already done quality assurance. Now everybody in the team needs to go in and just check, double check, and triple check everything that's going on. So some of your SOPs might be really simple. Some of them might be really descriptive and detailed. It's really going to depend on the level of project or item that you're working on. So to reiterate, the things we need: last updated date, link to the video, directions, and the brief. So if we look at this from a perspective of, okay, I'm coming in as a new team member, I'm given this training from my other team member or an account executive. So we break down the directions. For each site we complete, I would like you to perform a preview of any issues you find. And then we just list it out. Just review each page for dead or broken links, misspellings or issues, lorem ipsum text, issues with look and feel, just all of those items. And we actually perform these audits pretty regularly. So as your team gets acclimated and they're training and using these, they're going to get to the point where they're like, okay, I don't even need to check the SOP, but they can always reference it and go back to it to make sure that they're doing the job correctly. And a lot of times we'll take our SOPs and bring them into our project management system as a step-by-step checklist. So again, it's just a win-win. And I hope that once you watch this video, check out this training, that you definitely look at it from a perspective of this is something I need to implement ASAP. So I have another one that I want to show you. This is how we create low fidelity websites, because a lot of you might be thinking, well, you can't automate creativity. You can't create an automation or a system and you can't automate that creative side, right? But what you can do is you can develop a system that helps your designers, your team flourish. So this is our process for creating lo-fi or low fidelity website wireframes for our clients as a part of the process. Low fidelity is essentially how the site is laid out, how it looks, but without the branding, typography, images. It's essentially the blueprint for your website. So we created a system for this so that way our designers can focus on what they do best, and we can allocate time to really performing things in the beginning, like competitive analysis, research, artboards, so that they're ready. So first thing we do, of course, we have the training video, and when it's last updated. Right after that, I talk about low fidelity, what they are and how they perform. And then I talk a little bit about tools that you'll need, right? They'll need the sitemap, right? So they know exactly what sections and pages to create. They'll need a link to inspiration. We'll usually create a website artboard as a team based on the findings that we have, and then leave comments on things that we really want to include. And then we have an example low fidelity wireframe in Figma that they can use as a UI kit. So now our designer comes in and they're like, okay, I have a sitemap. I have inspiration and visual assets that I can use. I also have an example of a low fidelity wireframe. And I also have a UI kit that I can use from Figma to create this. Now they have all the assets and things that they need to really hit the ground running, as opposed to, hey, can you do a low fidelity wireframe for me? Right? Now that they're empowered, they have everything that they need to make high quality products for you and your team. So with that said, I wanted to show you an example of what that video training looks like. As you can see here, this is a video from YouTube. On the left-hand side, I have my window up, right? And then on the right-hand side, I have the steps that I'm going through. Now, the main reason I record this way is so that way, whoever's taking this training can see me performing the task, but then they can also see the step-by-step breakdown of how I'm completing that. So let's talk a little bit about the tools that you can use. Great thing about SOPs is there's a low cost to entry and you practically don't have to spend anything to create them. So let me break it down. You can use a doc platform. I like Google Docs. Notion is a great option, especially if you're creating a knowledge base. They also have tons of templates you can use as well. For screen recording software, I like Loom. It's free. It's high quality. It works really, really well with browsers as well. So check that out. And then regarding a mic, you can grab a Yeti, which is about $100 on Amazon. Really good quality mic that works well. These are all the things you need to get the job done. Your doc platform, your screen recording software, and your mic. Now, just to recap everything, because I want to make sure I hit all these different points, and I really hope you're getting value from this presentation, is one, we talked about SOPs, which are essentially step-by-step directions on how to perform specific and complex tasks in your business. We talked about why you should create SOPs to save time, to scale your efforts, and to really take back time. Thirdly, how to create SOPs. We talked about how we break it down by having a link to the video, the last date it was updated, specifics about what you're performing, and then the step-by-step directions on how to do so. And then I shared 5 web design SOP examples. And I know your brain is probably going right now. You're probably thinking, okay, what can I SOP out right now? What can I take and really execute on my business with? And then lastly, I talked about the tools to make it happen. So without further ado, I want to thank everyone that's come through and checked out the presentation. You can hit me up anytime. I'm happy to answer your questions, and I'm just happy to be here. Peace.